Have you ever stumbled into a moment that changed your entire life? I'm Ethan, a regular 24-year-old guy, working in a small auto shop. One wrong knock on a door led me to meet a woman I can't stop thinking about. This is the story of how an ordinary day became the starting point for something extraordinary. Stick around, because this story is unlike anything you've ever heard. I'm Ethan, 24. Just a guy with grease-stained hands and mornings that start with the hum of a power drill in a small auto shop near a college campus. My job at a local repair garage isn't glamorous, just wrenches, rusted bolts, and long, sweaty days. But 2 weeks ago, I stepped away from the shop to help my brother, Jake, move into his new rental house in a quiet little town about 40 minutes from my place. The town's peaceful, almost too perfect, with tree-lined streets, birds chirping, and the faint smell of fresh-cut grass in the air. Jake just got married, and he and his wife wanted a bigger place to start their new life together. I had some downtime between shifts, so I offered to help them move. That morning, the sky was clear, but the July heat had me drenched in sweat through my t-shirt. I was hauling cardboard boxes from a U-Haul truck, my shoulders aching like I'd just run a marathon. Jake yelled from inside the truck, "Take this box to the back door." I grabbed it, heavy as a rock, and staggered forward. My brain was focused on not dropping it, so I didn't pay much attention to the house numbers. I was sure I was heading to Jake's place, number 42, but I'd wandered over to number 40 by mistake. The back door was shut tight, unlike Jake's, which was usually propped wide open. I knocked, not wanting to barge in on someone else's house. A few seconds later, the door swung open. A woman, probably in her late 30s, stood there holding a steaming mug of coffee. She wore a gray hoodie, black leggings, and was barefoot on the hardwood floor. Her dark blonde hair was pulled up in a loose ponytail, a few strands falling around her face. She looked at me, eyes narrowing, slightly not annoyed, but surprised, like I'd interrupted the quiet rhythm of her morning. Then she gave a half smile, her voice soft but with a hint of humor. "You're definitely not the pizza guy." I froze, embarrassed. The box in my arms suddenly felt heavier. "Oh, sorry," I stammered. "I thought this was 42, she tilted her head, glancing behind her like she was checking for an actual pizza delivery. "Close enough. This is 40. I gave an awkward laugh, feeling my face heat up. "Makes sense, I'll take this next door." I started to turn, but she glanced at the box, then back at me, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "If that's anything good, you can just leave it here," she said, her smile widening, her tone light but teasing. I stood there, unsure how to respond. Her smile wasn't just polite, the kind people use to brush off awkward moments. It was different, like she hadn't smiled like that in a while. A smile that was both genuine and cautious, like she wasn't sure she should be smiling at all. We stood there for a moment, the space between two strangers suddenly charged, not uncomfortable, but full of possibility. I was about to leave, when she leaned out, looking past me toward her backyard. "Do you got any experience moving heavy furniture?" she asked, her voice still playful. I blinked, caught off guard. "I know enough to not hurt myself if I'm careful," I said, half joking. She laughed, a clear, bright sound, then stepped outside, pointing to her backyard. An old rusted armchair sat in the grass, looking like it had been there forever, forgotten by time and weather. "That chair's been mocking me for 2 weeks," she said, her tone a mix of frustration and humor. I tried dragging it across the yard, but it just sank into the dirt. Without thinking much, I set the box down on her porch. "Need help moving it?" She looked at me, her eyes flashing with surprise and a touch of relief. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said, following her to the yard. The chair was heavier than it looked, its fabric faded and caked with dust. We lifted it together, me on one end, her on the other. When we set it down near the sliding glass door, she knelt to slip a small rug under its legs to protect the floor. "I've lived here almost 5 years," she said, her voice quieter, like she was sharing a small secret. "But I'm still not used to asking for help." I shrugged, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Funny thing is, most people are happy to help if you give them a chance." She looked up at me, her gaze not quite flirtatious but searching, like she was trying to figure out what kind of person I was. We stood up, the chair in place, and I dusted off my hands, ready to head back. Then she said, her voice soft but certain, like the words slipped out before she could stop them, "Most guys don't notice me anymore." There was no self-pity in her tone, just a fact she'd grown used to. I didn't think, just looked at her and said, "Then they're blind." She froze, her eyes flickering, like my words had touched something deep inside her. Then she took a quick breath and laughed, a small, almost disbelieving sound. "Thanks for the help, Ethan," she said, her voice warm, my name carrying a strange weight. "Now you can get back to the chaos of moving." Asterisk, I nodded, smiling. "Anytime." I stepped off the porch, crossing the yard back to Jake's, but all day her look when I said that lingered in my mind, like she hadn't expected anyone to truly see her. The next morning, I was back at Jake's hauling the last boxes from the truck. My brother and his wife were already bickering about whether the TV should go in the living room or the bedroom. Their voices echoed from inside, making me want a moment of peace. I stepped outside, breathing in the fresh air. The town was so quiet, just birds chirping and the distant hum of cars. As I turned back to the truck for another load, my eyes drifted to number 40, her house. I hadn't expected to remember her name so quickly. Yesterday, as we moved the chair, she'd said casually, "I'm Mia, by the way, not that you asked." I didn't ask, but her name stuck. Now Mia was on her front porch, holding a watering can, dressed in simple jeans and a navy t-shirt, barefoot again, like she never needed shoes. She looked up, catching my eye. A smile spread across her face, warmer this time, more intentional. "Lost again," she called, her tone teasing. I laughed, walking toward the fence between the houses. "Not today, just taking a water break." She tilted her head, the watering can still in her hand. "So, on your little stroll, did you smell coffee, or are you pretending not to notice?" I chuckled. "Didn't think I was that obvious." She nodded toward her open front door. "Come on, I won't keep you long." I hesitated, but only for a second. Then I crossed the yard, following her inside. Mia's house wasn't like a magazine spread. It was cozy, lived in, full of signs of a real life. A few framed paintings hung on the walls. A candle burned on a side table, filling the air with a faint vanilla scent. A stack of books sat on the kitchen counter, some open, like she'd been reading them this morning. The space made me want to sit down and stay. Mia handed me a mug of black coffee, no questions about how I took it. I didn't mind. We walked into a small sunlit room overlooking the backyard, where the armchair from yesterday sat neatly by the glass door. Morning light spilled through the windows, casting a soft golden glow. Mia sat across from me, sipping her coffee. "Thanks for yesterday," she said, her voice sincere. "I know I kind of roped you into it. You gave me an excuse to take a break from moving," I said. "I should be thanking you." She smiled. Not a quick or polite smile, but a slow one that softened her eyes. She looked at me for a moment, then asked, "Are you always this nice, or is it just for older ladies with stubborn furniture?" I laughed hard. "I'm only nice to people who are nice to me. Nothing to do with age." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Careful, that's starting to sound charming." I shrugged. "Honest, not trying to be." She leaned back, looking out the window, her gaze distant. "Funny," she said. "When you live alone long enough, you get used to the quiet. But sometimes, someone says something and the quiet feels heavier." I didn't know how to respond, so I just listened. She took another sip of coffee, then continued, her voice softer, like she was talking to herself. "I got divorced 2 years ago, after 11 years. No kids, no big court battles. He just left. Then suddenly I'm 37, then 38, and people stop asking if I'm dating. They just assume I'm not, or worse, that I don't want to." She paused, like she regretted saying so much. "Sorry," she said, "not exactly cheerful coffee talk." I shook my head. "I'd rather have real conversations than small talk." She looked at me, curious, not quite surprised, like she was trying to figure me out. "You don't seem like a 24-year-old, she said. I grinned. "Sometimes I don't." She said she still listens to The Killers, especially Mr. Brightside from their 2004 album, because it reminds her of freer days. I pushed back when she said blockbuster movies are overrated, and we had a playful argument about whether Interstellar was a masterpiece or just a confusing mess. She admitted she'd thought about quitting her graphic design job to open a bakery but laughed it off as a fleeting dream. It felt easy, like we'd known each other forever. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Before I stepped out, she said, "Ethan, you surprised me yesterday when I said guys don't notice me." You responded. Most people would have laughed it off or changed the subject. I looked at her honest. "I don't think you're invisible. I think people just forget to look up." She gave a small, almost private smile. "Maybe," she said. "See you around, Ethan." I nodded. Mia. I crossed the yard back to Jake's, but my head was different. Not because I expected anything, but because I felt a connection, like we'd found a quiet corner in each other's busy lives. Over the next few days I kept coming back to Jake's, but if I'm honest, it wasn't just to help my brother. Number 40, Mia's house, had its own pool. I'd catch her watering plants, taking out the trash, or sitting on her porch with a book and a steaming mug of tea. Each time, we'd pause, talk for a minute, sometimes 20. Once I saw her struggling with a bag of potting soil in her car trunk. I walked over, lifted it out without asking. She didn't thank me right away. Instead, she looked at me, eyes glinting, and said, "You don't mind helping people, do you?" I just smiled. "Only if they're worth helping." One day, I ran into Mia at the grocery store, right by the frozen aisle. I was debating between fancy vanilla ice cream and the cheap stuff. She appeared, holding up a pint of mint chocolate chip with a triumphant grin. "Made your choice yet, Ethan?" she teased. We ended up wandering the aisles together, arguing over whether creamy or crunchy peanut butter was better. She likes creamy, I'm a crunchy guy. At checkout, she snuck an energy drink into my cart and paid for it. I offered to pay her back, but she waved me off. "Consider it interest for the next time I need you to lift something heavy." Those little moments piled up like bricks building a path. I started looking forward to seeing her, even if just for a few minutes. One afternoon, Jake and his wife were out, leaving me alone with their half-unpacked boxes. I was about to head home when I saw Mia in her yard, setting up a small table under a tree. She looked up, surprised, not hanging with the newlyweds. I shook my head. They ditched me. She smiled, pointing to the empty chair across from her. "Wanna keep me company?" I sat down. We ate sandwiches and shared a bag of potato chips. It was simple, but it felt so right, like time slowed down. Afterward, I helped her untangle a wind chime caught in a tree branch. When we were done, we sat again, quiet, just listening to the rustling leaves. Then she said, her voice soft as the breeze, "You make me forget about time." I looked at her. Her eyes shone, but there was something startled in them, like she hadn't meant to say it. "Is that a compliment?" I asked, half teasing. She didn't look at me, just smiled. "It's a rare thing, that's all." I wanted to ask more but didn't. Instead, we talked about music. She showed me her 2004 playlist full of songs, like Somebody Told Me by The Killers, and dared me to find fault with it. We sat on her porch passing her phone back and forth, playing songs, teasing each other about music tastes. I told her about a hiking trip with friends, and she said she used to love hiking but hadn't in years. I offered to take her, but she laughed, saying she didn't own any decent hiking boots. "We'll start with a walk around the block," I said. She gave me a look like I was ridiculous, but her mouth twitched, and that was enough. That night when I got home, I sent her a picture of a lake I'd taken on a hike. She didn't reply right away. An hour later, my phone lit up. She'd sent a photo of her backyard at sunset, the sky glowing orange through the trees. Under it, she wrote, "Too pretty to watch alone." My heart beat faster. I texted back, "Wait for me next time." She didn't reply immediately. 10 minutes, then 20. I set my phone down, trying to distract myself, but it buzzed again. "Come over now. It's still gorgeous." I didn't hesitate. Didn't bother fixing my hair or changing my shirt, just grabbed my keys and drove over. When I got there, Mia was in her backyard, wrapped in a blanket, another mug of tea steaming beside her. The sky was ablaze with orange, pink, and purple. I sat next to her, saying nothing. She handed me the tea. We sat quietly, watching the sky darken and the first stars appear. Then she said, her voice low, "I didn't mean for this to happen." I didn't ask what she meant. We both knew and we were both scared, but neither of us wanted to pretend it wasn't real. We sat there, maybe an hour, maybe longer. When the chill set in, I tugged at the blanket, offering to share. She didn't say anything, just lifted it, and I slid closer, our shoulders touching. We sat side by side, wrapped in the same wool blanket, staring ahead, but I wasn't thinking about the stars anymore. Her hand rested on her lap. Still, I moved mine closer. When my fingers brushed hers, she didn't move. Neither did I finally. She spoke, her voice tired, not cold, but like she'd been down this road before and feared where it led. "You know this can't go anywhere, right?" I answered slowly. "Why not?" She gave a soft, almost self-mocking laugh. "Because people will talk, because I'm 15 years older than you, because I've got messy chapters behind me and you haven't even started yours." I looked at her, serious. "You think this is just a random chapter for me?" She didn't answer right away, her eyes wavering. Then she said, quieter, "I forgot what it feels like to be noticed." Her words hit me harder than I expected. We didn't kiss, not then. That night wasn't about movie-style romance. It was about closeness, about choosing not to walk away, about the silence when two people stop overthinking. Eventually, we stood. She walked me to the side gate. Before I left, I turned. "Mia," I said. She looked up, waiting. "This doesn't feel like a mistake." Her eyes met mine, full of feeling. "That's what scares me," she whispered. The days after, Mia and I fell into a natural rhythm. I kept coming to Jake's to fix a leaky kitchen faucet, assemble bookshelves, or wrestle with IKEA furniture that almost sparked a fight with my brother. But every time I found a reason to stop by Mia's, not always on purpose. Sometimes it was just a minute in her yard, talking about the weather or how she was trying to grow roses. Once I saw her on her porch, sunglasses pushed up on her head, reading a thick novel. She looked up, smiled. "You again." I shrugged. "Can't stay away." Our connection grew from the little things, like how she laughed when I told her about ruining my first car by leaving the radio on overnight, or how she shared a story about a client who kept mistaking her logo designs for cartoons. We didn't call it dating, never labeled it, just two people showing up in each other's lives, day after day. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted. I got a call from a garage in Oregon. Months ago, I'd applied for a job there, a long shot, wouldn't it be nice kind of thing. I'd forgotten about it, but they called saying the job was mine if I wanted it. Good pay, full benefits, a chance to start fresh. I stood in Jake's yard, phone in hand, my head spinning. Oregon, hundreds of miles away from Mia. Tell her right away. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I hadn't decided, that maybe what I had with Mia was temporary. But that night, sitting on her couch, our feet touching under a blanket, she noticed something was off. We were watching a movie, but I wasn't paying attention. She hit pause, turned to me, her eyes sharp. "Hey, what's going on?" I tried to brush it off. "What? I'm just tired." She tilted her head, her gaze cutting through me. "You're not tired. You're somewhere else." I sighed, knowing I couldn't hide it. So I told her everything about the call, the job, Oregon, the chance to start over. She listened, silent, her fingers fidgeting with the blanket's edge. When I finished, she didn't cry or get mad. She just went still, like a part of her shut down. "You gonna take it?" she asked, her voice flat. "I haven't decided," I said. "I'm not sure I want to go." She nodded, her eyes on the floor. Then she asked, quieter, "If I wasn't here, would you take it?" I didn't want to lie. "Probably." She stayed silent for a long time, her fingers twisting the blanket. Then she said, her voice barely a whisper, "You should go. It was always temporary." I froze. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd prepared for this moment. "Mia, no," I said, but she cut me off. Gentle, but firm. "It's okay, Ethan, I know what this is. I told myself not to get used to how you make me feel. Too good, too unexpected. You've got a whole future ahead. I don't want you staying, and regretting it." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the words stuck in my throat. I just sat there, silent, feeling something break inside. The next morning I packed up. I didn't say goodbye to Jake or his wife, just told them I had to go. I got in my car, drove off, no radio. I needed the quiet to think, but the farther I drove, the emptier I felt. I stopped at a gas station 2 hours out, bought a coffee I didn't want, and sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel, trying to find a reason to "Don't go." I read it over and over, my heart pounding. Another text came. "No one's ever seen me like you do." I gripped the phone, reading it again. Then again, Mia, who'd never asked me for anything, was asking now. Not because she was weak, because she felt something real, just like I did. I turned the car around. The drive back felt longer than I remembered, but I didn't stop. When I got to Mia's, she was at her front door, barefoot, wrapped in a thin sweater. No makeup, eyes red but steady. I stepped out of the car, stood in front of her. "I don't want to miss out on a chance," I said, my voice rough, "but I'm not leaving just to prove something to someone else. I don't need to find myself. I found what matters." She stepped closer, slowly, and placed her hand on my chest. "You sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded. "I'm sure. I see you, Mia, and I'm not done yet." She didn't cry, neither did I. We just stood there holding each other in the fading afternoon light. No more words, just being there, together, and for the first time, I knew I'd made the right choice. After the day I turned back, things between me and Mia changed, but not in a loud way. It was like a river quietly finding its course. I passed on the Oregon job instead. I took a position at a local garage. Not fancy but steady, decent pay, and more importantly, it kept me close to Mia. I rented a small apartment 10 minutes from her place, but soon, her place became our place. I don't remember exactly when it happened, maybe after the nights I stayed over, cooking dinner together, or when I started leaving my toothbrush in her bathroom. We didn't make a big announcement. No social media posts, no declarations. The people who mattered knew, and the ones who didn't, well, they didn't get a say. Jake and his wife noticed I was at their neighborhood way more than needed. Jake just raised an eyebrow and asked, "You good?" I nodded. Better than good. His wife probably didn't get it, but she didn't say anything. Mia had her own reasons for keeping things private. Not out of shame. She knew the world could be harsh to women like her, women who dared to live fully after 3-5. We found a rhythm together. Some nights I'd cook pasta, spill sauce on my shirt, and she'd laugh until she cried. Other nights she'd play old jazz like Billie Holiday, and we'd eat on the floor like kids. We told each other things we hadn't told anyone else. She shared how she almost quit graphic design after a client drove her up the wall. I told her about my first car repair, when I fried a battery because I was too busy listening to the radio. Small stories, but to us, they were everything. A year later I convinced Mia to go hiking. The trail I'd told her about, with a lake that sparkled under the sun. She bought new hiking boots, though she grumbled she wasn't a mountain person. The sky that day was clear, not a cloud in sight. We took it slow, stopping when she wanted to snap pictures of wildflowers or a weird-shaped rock. At a muddy patch, I took her hand, pulling her across. She glared at me, pretending to be annoyed. "I could have done it myself," she said, but her hand stayed tight in mine. When we reached the top, a light breeze carried the scent of pine and earth. Mia stood there, hair messy from the wind, cheeks flushed from the climb. She looked out at the lake, its surface mirroring the deep, blue sky. Then she turned to me, her eyes soft. "This is where I say I love you, right?" she asked, half teasing, half serious. I grinned. "You just did." She didn't reply, just leaned in, her lips brushing mine. No fireworks, no soundtrack, just peace, like a quiet sunrise spilling over the horizon. We stood there, hand in hand, looking down at the valley. I thought about the path that led us here, the chance encounters, the morning coffees, the nights sharing a blanket under the stars. Mia had feared this was a mistake, that the world would judge. But in that moment, on that hilltop, there was number judgment, no doubt. Just us, two people who found each other when neither was looking. That was the start of our forever. No games, no fear, no pretending, just love, Slow, steady, and exactly as it should be. As we walked down, Mia squeezed my hand tighter. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd feel like this again." I looked at her, smiling. "Me neither, but I'm glad we were both wrong." Ethan and Mia's story isn't just a love story. It's proof that real love can bloom in the most unexpected places, defying stereotypes, age gaps, or the world's invisible barriers. They found each other in the simple moments: a cup of coffee, an old armchair, a sunset, and chose to hold on, no matter what anyone else thought. Life doesn't always need fireworks or grand climaxes. Sometimes, it's enough to have someone who truly sees you, and you dare to see them back. Have you ever had a moment that made you feel truly seen? Or a love story that caught you by surprise and made you believe in the magic of connection? Share your story in the comments below this video. Don't forget to hit like if Ethan and Mia's journey warmed your heart. And subscribe to Hidden Tales for more stories that touch the soul. We're here to share the hidden stories that move us. Let's keep exploring together. The next story is waiting for you.